Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Brady Johnson.
And mine is Joe Blocker.
And this is the Alabama Student Eagles podcast. Today, we are joined by Cathi Bradford, who lives here in Coleman County. She's a teacher at Hanceville Middle School, and she is a candidate for Alabama State Board of Education District 6. So she's joining us today to share a little bit about her experience in the education system in Alabama and why she decided to run for office. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Of course. We're really excited about this. And I think to get it started off, we like to always ask our guests to share their story and a little bit about themselves and their background. So I'd love for you to just share with us where you come from and why you decided to become a teacher and what eventually led you to decide to get involved in politics.
Okay. Well, I'm married. I've been married 32 years. I met my husband in the military. I'm retired military. I served 23 years in the United States Air Force and Air Force Reserves. And, back a whole lot of years ago, I was saved at a little church in Florida where my husband and I were stationed. We had 2 little girls. And they had a tiny little Christian school there, and they needed a second grade teacher. And my girls were about ready to go to school, kindergarten and preschool. So I became their second grade teacher, a giant classroom of 7 students. That was overwhelming at the time because it was my first year teaching. And my kids went to school there with me, and that's how I became a teacher. Now, when I was in high school, I was involved in band and chorus, and I always wanted to be a band teacher. But the only band I knew was concert band. We didn't do a lot of marching in the school that I went to. But I did end up becoming a teacher, obviously, and I've been a teacher now for almost 26 years.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
So what was it specifically about teaching that made you want to pursue that as a career?
It's something, like I said, that I'd always wanted to do. When I was in high school, I led the band. I was the concert director or conductor. And I play piano and I sing. And so the band director at our school wasn't crazy about teaching chorus, and so he let me do it. So I would play the piano and teach the people their parts, and I really enjoyed the teaching aspect of it. And I thought I'd go to school to be a teacher, but instead I went to the military first, and then I became a teacher later.
Wow. I also like to sing and do music-related things, so that's fun. I definitely enjoy those classes at my school. But I wanted to ask, since my Nana is also a teacher, I've heard some of her own stories, and I know there could be good days and there's bad days, and there's some students that are difficult. But I wanted to ask you, as in teaching, what was the moment that made you say, this is worth it?
Well, like I said, I taught at a small Christian school in Florida, and I was a newly saved person, and I wasn't raised in church, and I just loved the truths that I could find in the Bible that I could teach those kids. And I was learning the Bible lessons right along with them. And from that point forward, I wanted to be a teacher. Now, today I teach history, and kind of an interesting story why I teach history. So my husband, one day I was home, and I'd been home with the kids while they were growing up, and thankfully I've got a great husband, and he saw lots of potential in me. So he dragged me down. Now, this is, of course, years later, but he dragged me down to the local community college, and we signed me up for school. And honestly, my history professor at college is the reason that I became a history teacher. And he's actually a representative now in Congress for the state of Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he's
cool.
the reason I ever became a history teacher. Fun fact, I was a little bit older then, and I told him that he was the first time, or his teaching was the first time that I was being instructed by someone younger than me, and that he was actually teaching history that I had lived through.
Oh,
wow.
But it was fun, and he really did inspire me. He was just a phenomenal history teacher, and he inspired me for sure.
So why do you think it's important for people to study history?
Well, I tell my kids even now, because I teach history now, 6th grade, and I tell my kids, and I know it sounds cliche, but it is so true, that we've got to study history so that we don't repeat the mistakes that we've made in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, even as human beings, we always want to sharpen ourselves and get better all the time. And the way we do that is we look to others that maybe are leaders in our field, but we also want to study what's happened in the past to improve upon those things. And so, that's why I think teaching history is so important.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main reason why there's so many people on the left that believe what they do is because they haven't learned from history.
Yeah,
we've seen a large socialist uprising in college students in America now. Thankfully, I think it's starting to make a turnaround.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of we got a Christian revival going on among the Gen Z generation right now. So, and those ideals come with a lot of Republican values, which is very anti-socialism. So I'm glad to see that. But I think you're totally right. Studying history is extremely important. I know that history is my favorite subject personally, and that I have learned a lot of life lessons that I use daily, just from learning about like major figures like Martin Luther.
Sure.
And the 95 Thesis, and bravery and courage, and most of all, trust in God. Because every time that we see people in history who believed in God, they were great inventors and great writers and artists, and they achieved amazing things. So yeah, and I think that history is much more than a class at school. It's an important lesson to be learned.
Well, and you mentioned too about learning about heroes. There's so many heroes in not just in U.S. history but world history that young people can look to learn great foundations to apply to their own lives. And so we cannot omit the teaching of history for sure.
Yes. Yeah, there's a really good quote that says, "The best prophet for the future is our past."
Yeah.
And so, in other words, if you want to know what's going to happen or how things are going to turn out, you can look at history and learn a lot of lessons from that. And also, like Jill, like you were saying, you can draw a lot of inspiration from some of those heroic figures, some of those people who have lived through challenging times and risen above their circumstances in order to
Absolutely.
achieve great things. I mean, look at Winston Churchill in the 20th century. Look at Abraham Lincoln. And many other American presidents, George Washington, all of the American founders.
Sure.
You can draw a lot of inspiration from learning about those people's lives, and it can also teach you a lot about how to make wise decisions in your own life.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's really good. So now, kind of segueing from that, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the American education system in general, because there's been some controversy in recent years over how history is actually taught to students. And you can look at things like the 1619 Project that was pushed by the left a few years back, where they said that we need to basically redefine the founding of America and emphasize certain things like slavery and racism and put the focus on that instead of the achievement of the founding fathers when they, established the Constitution and when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. And so because of that, because of the battles that are going on right now in the education system in our country, I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. What do you think is the solution moving forward? How should we deal with some of these issues like critical race theory and the 1619 Project, like I mentioned, that are being taught in classrooms?
Even gender identity.
Yes,
Sure.
that as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, being a history teacher and student myself, it actually goes back even further to the 1930s. I don't know if you've all researched that, but there's a school in Germany called the Frankfurt School. And the Frankfurt School in Germany literally had people within that school that were learning more about communist type of societies and how to employ communism in different societies. Well, then Hitler came on the scene, and those people that wanted to promote communism knew that Hitler wasn't going to allow them to stay at that Frankfurt School. They moved over to the United States. And you know what school they came to? They came to Columbia University in New York. That's really where it started. And then it's just kind of permeated throughout our higher level learning centers. And so then those people are learning those Marxist ideas. And now, of course, we see it throughout the United States, even in our younger people, because it started up there at the higher level learning, and now it's filtered all the way down through, kindergarten through 12th grade. It's very
and
concerning.
You think that in a conservative state like Alabama, we'd be completely immune from anything like that because of how conservative the Alabama population is. Sure. But if you look at some of the universities in Alabama, some of the colleges in our state, there's professors there who are teaching some of these dangerous ideas that are being pushed by the left.
Absolutely.
We just did a panel with some college students, and I asked them about, the left indoctrination that we see on campus so often, and if they experience any of it. And they said, it's definitely there's a left presence on campus. We do need to have a major revival and turnaround in the way that we teach, and we need to bring it all back to God.
Yes,
absolutely.
So you're running for Alabama State Board of Education. So how do you plan to do that if elected to that position?
Right.
And also just tell us about what members of the State Board of Education actually do, because I think a lot of our audience members would love to learn more about that position and what decision-making power you would have.
Okay, so the state board members, their job is just really, in a word or two, is they set policy for the entire Alabama school system, whether it be policies and safety or curriculum. They're very far-reaching. So to go back to your question about how would I fix the curriculum, that's one of my platform items, is exactly that, because I can tell you specifically, just a couple weeks ago, there's eight members on the school board, and the governor would be the deciding vote if they needed a tiebreaker. And just a couple weeks ago, our State Board of Education, it was a split vote on the social studies textbooks, which is pretty interesting, because I don't know, I haven't researched it, but I don't believe that there's ever been that close of a vote for textbooks before. So 4 of our state board members were adamantly opposed to all of the textbooks that were going to be offered to be used as our curriculum. Oh. Yeah, and the governor came in and decided the vote, so they voted in favor of the textbooks. So those textbooks will all be in our schools, but I can tell you that there's definitely some controversial things in those textbooks. There's a lot of really building up and highlighting Islam. Very little information at all about Christianity. There's one textbook in particular that has a section labeled "Threats to Democracy," and it has these, terrible dictators and whatnot throughout history. And then the last paragraph talks about the rise of populism movement in the United States, led by Donald Trump. Yeah, it's really some bad stuff in our textbooks.
How did that get into the Alabama curriculum? Like, how did we allow that to happen?
So it's not in the course of study. So the state sets our course of study, and the course of study for the teachers is all of the items that they have to teach their students each year based upon their grade level. And so that's not, there isn't an item in there that says teach that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. There isn't a standard in there that says that, but it's in the textbooks. So, I guess hopefully the teachers will understand that that's not part of it, but it's still in the textbook. It's going to go home. The kids may read it. They're going to see it. It's kind of like, I tell everybody, even if they don't teach it, it's kind of like, when you have those bubbles popping from the Pepsi on the screen in front of a movie theater and you want to go buy that Pepsi because all of a sudden you're thirsty. If you put those ideas in front of children, they may absorb them. And you don't want those ideas in front of our children, because Alabama has conservative values, and we want to make sure that we keep those in place.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think the left understands how impressionable children are,
Absolutely.
and they're trying to take advantage of it. I think it's extremely important to keep that stuff out, especially in, you said you're a middle school teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
In kids as young as middle school or elementary school. If I had seen that when I was in elementary school and shown it to my mom, I don't know what she would have done.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of these books, typically today, because the textbooks are so expensive, these textbooks don't go home. They're online,
Right.
Oh,
but
wow.
the textbooks don't go home. So they could, if the parents were adamant and wanted to see them, of course, but they don't go home. They're available online. So a lot of parents won't be aware that that's what their kids are being taught in the classrooms.
So is that currently being voted on by the State Board of Education? Has it already been voted on?
It's been voted on.
So it's currently in place right now?
Well, so what's happened is the books have been voted on, or those textbooks. And so now it'll go out to the local education agencies, to all the districts, and they'll vote on which one of those they want to use in their district.
Okay.
So if you're in Coleman and you're watching this, don't vote for that.
Okay. So what are some of the other issues that led you to run for State Board of Education? What are some of the other things that you care about, or things that you think need to be improved in the Alabama education system?
So next is I want to protect classroom instruction time for teachers. So like I said, I've been a teacher for 26 years, and more and more things, I guess, from levels above us in the classroom are being dictated that we have to do these other things. And so one of those is state mandated mental health programs. So they don't mandate any particular program per se, but each local education agency has to adopt a program or find a program to use in their system. And then it's up to the teachers to teach those programs in their classrooms. And what I tell people is, I went to school to teach history and English, and the state requires me to be qualified and certified in my subject area, yet the state is also asking me to teach mental health lessons to children that I'm not qualified nor certified to teach. So, and that's taking up a lot of our time. But I do want to dispel one thing, because I did get a question the other day from a gentleman about, they were concerned that my concern about teaching mental health in the classroom was in direct correlation to supporting special education students, and that isn't the case at all. As a matter of fact, another history thing, back in 1975, President Gerald Ford signed into law, and I can't remember what the name of it was then, but it's now called IDEA. It's the Individual with Disabilities in Education Act, and he signed that into law in 1975. And you know what he said in 1975? He said, "This all sounds great on paper, but I doubt that we'll ever have the funding for it." So the funding was supposed to be 40% more for those students in the classroom. So that would get those students additional aids. It would get us more special education teachers, maybe more materials, whatever the funding, that they deemed that would be required to help those kids. Guess how much it's only ever been funded? 10%.
Wow.
10%. So I just want to make sure that people understand that the mental health programs I'm talking about in the classrooms are not at all, they're not at all that I think that those special education students should be not funded or not supported.
Right.
They certainly should be. It's unfortunate that they're not funded the way they should be, but that comes from the federal government, not at the state level. So, but as far as the social emotional learning programs that we teach in our classrooms, the ones that I have personally been involved with, that they have a lot of lessons in there that split up, that purposefully or seem to purposefully want to split up parents and children.
Yeah, I've noticed that same thing a lot. I know that a lot of times schools will send out emails or notes that say, if you're a child and you need help and you need to talk to somebody about something, if you're being bullied at school, go talk to a teacher or go talk to this counselor, but it almost never says parent or guardian.
Right.
That the only time I really see parent or guardian come up is whenever they need like a form signed for a field trip.
Right.
But I've seen a lot of times the parents being kind of shuffled out of their own children's lives, and it's a little bit scary because kids are at school more than they're at home nowadays.
Right.
Even after school, there's after school activities that the kids have to do. They see their parents less and less. And I think that we really need to get the parents more involved in school and,
Absolutely.
not
That's
not
the last
push
thing
them
we
out
want
as
to
much.
do is push the parents away.
Yes.
Exactly. I
Yes.
think what the Bible gives them the authority, right, to raise up their children.
And we see the left right now trying to destroy the bond between parent and child
Right,
in our
yeah.
country with a
Exactly.
lot of the ideas that they're pushing.
And parents also do a lot of educating. The schools educate you on matters of history and science, but at home, your parents are the ones that teach you how to share. Your parents are the ones that teach you, don't touch the stove and other things like that. As you get older, they teach you how to work well with money. There's lots of ways that parents contribute to education, and so we really shouldn't shift them out, especially since in the end, parents have or at least they should have the final say in what happens to their child. Like we've seen a lot of stuff on the news about kids who said they were transgender, and then the schools helped them get surgery without their parents knowing or being notified on it at all. Honestly, it's really sad and it's tragic because that child is absolutely not old enough to make that decision for themselves.
I agree.
If they can't drive, then they shouldn't be able to say yes to a surgery.
Well, and the same thing too, like we were talking about the social emotional learning programs. So some of them, and a lot of them are created way outside of Alabama. A lot of them are created out on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And so I know that there are some out there that there's a survey that the kids have to fill out in the very beginning. And remember we talked about the Pepsi with the bubbles? So one of the first questions on there is, what's your gender? And it asks male, and it gives 3 options. No, 4. Male, female, other, or prefer not to say. And so those are things that kids in the state of Alabama are seeing. And that's just like that, the bubbles popping in the Pepsi, that you're planting a little idea there that shouldn't be there.
The fact that other exists.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so moving quickly now to national politics. I'm curious to get your thoughts on whether or not you believe the Department of Education should be removed. Should we get rid of the Department of Education?
Yes.
Okay. Why? Why should we?
Because it should be the closer we get to educating our kids, the closer level where we are to educating our children is going to always benefit our kids. And so the federal government is so far removed that and each state is different. And so I think each state at that level knows their communities better and knows how to better educate their communities. And so I definitely think I'm really excited about Linda McMahon is disassembling the Department of Education. Yeah, it seems like every day she's getting rid of another department.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's better to keep things more local. I think that's one of the beauties of the American system that we have. That power is distributed across state and local governments.
Right.
It's not just consolidated in Washington, D.C. Actually, localities have a lot of control over how decisions are made and what things are done in their own communities.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the checks and balances.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's really important.
So this is a little bit shifting a little bit, but still talking about education. Since you are running for the position that you're running for, I was wondering, how are you going to use it to make America's kids, or at least, Alabama's kids, more patriotic? Because I know you care a lot about patriotism, and we've seen a decline of that a lot among people my age, talking about, Trump being Nazi and all this stuff. They're making people my age a lot less patriotic. I, for one, am, but I was just wondering, how do you plan to make that better?
Yeah, well, it definitely starts when the kids are young. And I guess fortunately and unfortunately, I know that our literacy scores in Alabama have increased. They passed a literacy act, and there's been a real focus placed on literacy. And I also know that we've employed something called the science of reading in the classes, which really, that's part of my platform also, is going back to basics. It's teaching really heavy phonics again, which that's both of my kids learned with phonics, and both of my girls are great readers. But as far as teaching patriotism, I think we've had such a focus on the Literacy Act, which isn't a bad thing, but we've gotten away from history instruction. And I think we can meld those together, because history is reading, right?
Yeah.
So we should probably, my goal, what I would like to see is the reading instruction that we give to those younger students, pre-K, kindergarten through through the elementary grades is maybe more of their reading assignments need to be reading about those great heroes of the past and learning about U.S. history and those things so that they have that foundation. Then as they get older, then they can expand, the depth and breadth of their knowledge. But I feel like we're not in the younger years setting in that patriotism that they so desperately need. I have kids that I've taught that in the 6th grade that they don't know who fought who in the American Revolution. And it's sad. But they might be great readers, but they just don't have that content. So we really need to mesh that. We need to mesh together that patriotic learning with the reading. I mean, it goes hand in hand, right? Yeah. I think that would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, the 1619 project, that's going to make kids a lot less patriotic, but it's also lies. Like,
oh yeah.
But at the time, America had slaves, but everywhere else had slaves as well. And before that, for thousands of years, the world had slaves. But America was the ones that ended slavery.
Correct.
Before that, nobody else had done that. And people died to end slavery in America. That's how much we cared about freedom. And so I think I agree with you on that. I think that it's important to teach kids about those heroes, those great, especially the great American heroes, and great Christian heroes of history and of the timeline. Because I know that it's inspired me.
So did you know that President Trump, he had his own before he left office, the first go around. He had his own project called the 1776 Project. Were y'all aware of that? Yeah. So the 1776 Project was basically to combat the 1619. Yes, it was a response to the 1619 Project. So the 1776 Project went away, but guess what he is revitalizing?
The 1776 Project,
He is trying to bring back that patriotic teaching in our schools again because we've got to love our country. We live in the greatest country in the world, really. If you've not traveled outside of the country and come back again, you may not realize it, but this is the best country ever.
Yeah,
I did. I've served in the military. I've been over to Muslim countries, and I was so thankful to come back home.
Yeah. When you take an honest look at history, you realize how exceptional America is in the history of the world. And that really creates a lot of patriotism.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's important to, teach kids about American exceptionalism and about the amazing achievement that was the American founding.
Yeah,
so I wanted to also ask you, because I know that you're also involved in Republican Women's, and you lead the Republican Women's group here in Coleman. And so in addition to the time you spend being a teacher at Hanceville, you're also pretty involved in politics and obviously running this campaign for school board. So I am interested to know why you think it's important for people to be involved in politics. Why do you think it matters for people to start stepping up and making a difference in politics and in government? And also, you mentioned earlier about how you became a Christian. So I want to know, what role has faith played in your political views as well?
Okay, well, thank you. Good question. So again, first of all, I taught history, so I always kind of had an interest in. I'm that person that stays up till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching the returns come in because I want to know who's president before everybody else. And so I've always been like that. But the 2020 election, like so many people, I think really lit a fire under me. And I did a lot trying to find my local Republican parties. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to change the world. Yeah. And so I finally stumbled on the local Coleman County Republican Women's Party or group, and also the Coleman County Republican, or the Executive Committee, we call them here in Alabama, but the Coleman County Republican Party. And I'm the treasurer for it. I'm the president. I've just been elected to my second term as Coleman County Republican Women's president. So I'm excited to lead them. Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it. But my passion is I want good legislation passed. I want good legislation passed here. And I guess one of the things I learned after the 2020 election, I was really hyper-focused on national goings-on. But I can vote for my president, and of course I can call and reach out to my legislators, but things seem to move really slowly and in tiny increments there in DC. But I felt like if I can get involved at the local level, then I can have more impact right here in my community, and I can have more impact at the state level. And so I just encourage everybody that wants to get involved, come to our meetings, see what's going on. We are trying. I tell the ladies each month we talk about another piece of legislation that's really important to us. The Republican Women's Group for Alabama, the Alabama Federation of Republican Women, they always have every year before legislative session begins, they have their focus items for the session. And I try to bring those to our Coleman County Republican women, and guys can join too. But I try to bring those legislative items to those people so that they can make good informed decisions, and we can steer legislation in Montgomery also.
Yes, and people can reach out to you guys on Facebook, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
we have a Facebook page.
It's the second Tuesday of every month. That's when y'all's meetings are. So everybody should attend those.
Correct.
I've been to quite a few. The food is good.
The food is good.
And we highlight the Coleman Student Eagles every month.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay, so if anybody is interested in supporting you, how can they reach out? How can they find your campaign? Okay. Where can people go to support you there?
So I have a Facebook page. It's Cathi Bradford for State Board, but I also have a website, which is cathibradfordforstateboard.com. And so I would encourage you to reach out, check out the website. One thing I do really want to stress is the importance of primaries in Alabama. So the primary is May the 19th. And we encourage everybody to get out and vote. We have typically our numbers are terrible. About 20 to 30%, if we're lucky, are steering really the whole ship here in our state. And so we
need more people to get out there and vote.
Yes, yes. The reason the primaries are so important is because if you have 2 Republican candidates running, or 3 or 4, the primary decides who's going to run in the general election. And so many people put off voting until that general election. By then, your choice is made for you. So we really need to encourage people to vote in the primary.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Yes, get out there and vote on May the 19th. But one final question.
Yes, sir.
This is a good one since you're a history teacher. We like to ask people, if you could go back to one time period of history, where would you go? So being a history teacher, what would your answer be?
Well,
you might be the most qualified to answer this question.
Well, I don't know. You're going to hate my answer then.
Okay.
Because I always tell my husband the period of time that I'd want to go back to live in is the colonial days, because I love their pretty dresses.
Oh, okay. Well, there
pretty
you go.
Shallow, right? Hey. But I told them that they'd have to have air conditioning.
That would be the one condition.
That's a must.
But I love those long gowns.
That's good. All right, Jill, do you have a Bible verse to close us out?
I have a Bible verse for us. Today's Bible verse is Proverbs 9:10, and it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." I thought it fit pretty good since we've been talking about education a lot today.
Yes, ma'am, it sure does. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank
I really
you, Brady.
enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
Good to have you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great discussion. All right, and thank you for everyone for tuning in today, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we'll see you again next time.